Welcome to Aligned and Abundant, the podcast where authenticity meets practicality and where compassion, alignment, and abundance come together. I'm your host, Christine Marcario, here to help you slow down, become more mindful, and elevate your mental and emotional well-being so you can live life on your highest timeline. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Jacqueline van Bierk, and she is the podcast host of Her Gypsy Rebel. She is also a musician. Jacqueline, we have been in community together for a few months now, and it is a pleasure to finally have you on the podcast today. I'm so grateful that we are making this happen, and I'm just so excited to get into conversation with you. And I'd like for you to take a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And yeah, we've been in communication and I'm glad we're finally here having the conversation.
Yes, yes. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what you do, first of all.
I'm a singer-songwriter, artist, and I also love inspiring, motivating, empowering people. I've mainly done it through my music and through my live shows. I've also used to be a vocal coach. I still am, but I'm not active at the moment. So that's kind of been my journey for the past decade. I haven't had a 9 to 5 for a long time, which is challenging at times and also exciting. I'm pretty much a gypsy rebel. That's why I named my podcast Gypsy Rebel, because I believe in just living life on your own terms. Minimalism, big believer of less is more, making more space for what really matters. And I love to travel. I like to explore and encourage other people to do the same. I think a lot of us are just getting a little bit stuck in routines and everything is momentum. So once you get stuck in that frame of mind, the older you get, the harder it gets to let that go and start over. And I've started many chapters. I escaped East Germany as a young girl, and then I lived in West Germany for a minute, which was really exciting and a completely different world. I pretty much lived in a world of black and white and stepped into a world of color when I arrived in West Germany. I spent 4 nights or 5 nights, I can't remember exactly, but in the embassy after escaping. And then we got set free by the government of West Germany. And then I lived in West Germany for about a couple of years. And I met a friend, a girl we were just kind of my sister from another mister. And she was totally into America and, like, let's go to New York and explore. And we did. And the minute I stepped onto New York ground, I'm like, I'm home. It just felt so right, And spent a decade in New York, started my band Otto's Daughter, did a lot of odd jobs, including dancing. I was actually dancing for a long time and just bartending and doing all kinds of whatever came my way, Easy money, easy, fast money with flexible schedules. I always had that mindset. I never liked authority. I never liked, it's funny. I had actually a job a few years back and I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I was going to be a waitress. And I told my boyfriend, I'm like, I can't believe they just scheduled me. And he's like, well, they have to. I'm like, it was so foreign to me. I'm like, how could they just give me a schedule without asking me, It was just funny. But
Funny.
little side note. I know, little side note. Totally out of touch with reality. After like a decade in New York, people kept saying we toured all over. And I settled a lot for mediocre musicians. I think we had a large turnaround of musicians coming and going, and people started telling me, you got to go to LA. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't like LA. And it's funny because I didn't know much about it other than fake people and everything is so shallow and plastic. And so, but I was like, you know what, maybe this is, everybody keeps saying this, so there must be something that I should explore. And then I went to check it out and I was like, you know what, yeah. And I met so many amazing people in Los Angeles. So I spent another decade in Los Angeles. We played so many amazing shows with so many amazing bands, had a lot of opportunities working with producers, other singer-songwriters, composers. I got into composing music for film and TV. So it opened a lot of doors for me. And at some point, I got bored again because I'm a gypsy. I'm like, what's next? What I didn't like in LA was the weather was always
The same.
I missed the seasons. That's what I missed. In my heart, I'm always a New York girl. I always felt like, it's funny, my home doesn't feel like that's my home, my real home. New York feels like my home. And even though things changed a lot, but to me, I'm like a New York girl. I love the vibe, the people, the energy. 2019 rolled around, and I was just at the point where I'm like, all right, I quit my band. I quit my own band because we were just not on the same page anymore as far as creatively and the direction we wanted to go. You know, we toured quite a bit, and touring is such an interesting thing because it's not for everyone. And I really wanted to stay on the road, but I had musicians who really didn't. One of them had a family, and he was like, oh, I just want to go home. You know, it was not that lucrative financially, so I understood. And I was like, you know what, maybe this chapter's over. And honestly, when I did that, part of me died. I felt extremely lost, sad, depressed, because I was like, wow, the only thing, and that always tears me up because I was like, the only thing I said, a guy can break my heart, he can screw me over, people can, you know, screw me over, whatever. But the one thing that will never, ever let me down is my music. And then I felt like, wow, the only thing that makes me feel alive didn't work out. So, but then I was like, you know what, put your shit together and let's see what else we can do. And I started composing for film and TV. More, I really leaned into that, and it was really good. And I also really still enjoyed giving voice lessons because my students were my teachers. You know, I loved that so much because seeing someone walk in, not having confidence, not believing in themselves, not hitting those notes, and suddenly they just transform into this rock star, you know, I was like, yes. And also, I think when you work with kids especially, they're just so fresh and so innocent and so open and creative and explore things. And I always have that energy inside of me. So I always felt that I can relate to teenagers, kids so much because I'm still like a little 5-year-old. But at some point I was still like, what, there's more. What, you know, something is missing. And I had my dog. And honestly, my dog saved my life so many times because I had thoughts about, you know, maybe I'm done, you know. And it's weird because I'm so not that person. I'm a very uplifting person, but I felt so stuck. I was like, I love this park. I love this whole area, but I also don't want to be here. 10 years from now, if I'm still in the same park with the same people, doing the same thing, whoa, something needs to change. So I always wanted to visit my mom for longer. My mom is still in Germany. And so I said, you know, Mom, I'm going to come for 3 months. I'm going to rent my place out. And then all my friends were like, oh my God, what are you doing? You can't just leave your apartment. I'm like, well, I'm going to find someone to sublease. And if I can't find someone, then I'm just going to let it go. I don't care. You know, I'm at the point where I'm like, I got to change. And I think that's another thing. People are often very afraid of change because change is scary, right? We both know that. Our nervous system doesn't like change. It's scary. It's kind of funny because nothing in life is really predictable. Nothing in life is a guarantee, but we have this illusion that we have a guarantee if we have a job. You know, you could get fired at any moment. So I planned my trip to Germany. I booked a flight. I said, I'm going to come with my dog. And I'm going to spend 3 months with you. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like, don't worry. I know it's a long time, but I'm not just going to spend it with you. I'm probably going to visit friends and explore some opportunities in Germany. And then she visited me actually in June of that year, in 2019. And then she went back home. And a month before I was flying out, she got really sick. And she said that she had cancer and she had to get a giant operation. They cut her jaw open and it was crazy. I mean, talk about divine timing and intuition, following your intuition, you know? I mean, I found a person who ran my place immediately. I spoke to a friend of mine in the park. She's like, oh my God, I have a friend who needs something, a place to stay. And he's about to pay $6,000 a month. Like your place is like, you know, half of, not even less than half of that. So it all worked out. Went to Germany with Bolt, and then COVID hit. And it was weird because when I got to Germany, I mean, seeing my mom in that condition, you know, and then she had a track, she couldn't talk, she couldn't drink, eat on her own. I became her nurse, which is, you are so much more than you think you are, because I hate hospitals. I hate anything medical. And I know hate is a strong word, but I had to, you know, my mom's partner was not able to deal with all these things. And I was like, well, I got to step it up. I ended up vacuuming out her throat and changing her food bags and, you know, setting everything up, getting her medication ready. And it was crazy, but I did it. And it was weird when I got there and I realized, you know, I wanted to record my music and do all these things. And I was like, wow, my whole life is on hold. But my mom is my everything, because my dad passed away years before that, and I didn't make the time. I didn't know how severe his illness was, and I was so glad and happy that I was in Germany. And then suddenly the whole world stood still. I was like, wow, this is so crazy. I thought it's just my life standing still, and I did not mind because I just wanted my mom to be good again. But then the whole world stood still, and all I could think is how grateful I am to be with my mom, help her heal through this difficult situation, have my dog with me, who I would have lost my mind not being with my dog for 7 months. I ended up staying for 7 months. I told my mom, I'm not leaving until you can eat. We can have a coffee and a conversation. When that happens, then I can go. And so we did. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. And then I came back. The guy was still renting the place. He wanted more time. And I said, you know what? Take your time. Because for the first time in a long time, I had a friend who lives in Michigan, and he's been inviting me to come and visit him. He's like, I got a cabin for you. Please come visit. This is so beautiful. You have to explore this and experience this. And I was like, well, there's nothing to do. Everything is closed, shut down anyway. So I'm coming to Michigan. And stayed with a friend in New York first. She's always been a really generous person who just let me stay there. I had to stay there for 14 quarantine, after I came back. That was freaking crazy. They called me every day, And then I slowly made my way to Michigan, and I spent the summer in Michigan. Then I visited some other friends on my way back to LA. I went to Oklahoma visiting a friend. I went to St. Louis visiting a friend, and then Phoenix, Arizona. I have a friend there. I met all of these people in LA, which is interesting. And I went back to LA, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself 2 months and I'm out of here. I'm going to give my 30 days. I'm leaving. I don't want to be here anymore. And in January, I left, and then I kind of made my way back to Michigan, spending some time with my friends again until it was time to be in Michigan and be in my cabin where it was summertime. Yeah, so in a way, I was homeless, and I loved it. I just packed my stuff in LA. I cleaned everything out. Whatever didn't fit in my car, I gave away or I sold. Some of it is at a friend's, valuable things, that I thought that I don't want to let go of. But I let go of a lot of stuff that I regret a little bit sometimes, but it's good. It taught me that, I did this by choice. Some people's houses burn down. They don't even have a choice. They don't have a chance to pick and choose what they want to bring with them, But ever since, I've been living kind of the nomad life, I guess, the gypsy life. And now we're in an RV. And we're just trying to get away from the winter.
Yeah.
But I've been in Michigan. So I've been basically mainly in Michigan and then here and there visiting New York or going to Germany. But that's my journey in a nutshell.
Honestly, being a nomad or a gypsy sounds really interesting because you can just pick up and go, kind of wherever you feel called to. And it's kind of really cool that you actually ended up having all of these connections all over the world. Ironic that you didn't want to go to LA, but then that's where it sounds like so many of your connections were made.
Yeah. I mean, LA, as much as I love New York, I did not make as many friends or connections, long-lasting connections in New York as I did in LA. And what I've learned is the energy you put out, you attract. So I attracted so many generous, amazing, talented people in my life that we ended up collaborating. We ended up pitching our music together. They would introduce me to other people that they knew, vice versa. It was just such teamwork, which I did not experience in the rock world with my band. It was more the composer side. And again, I think I got really lucky. To this day, 15 years later, we still meet once a month via Zoom mainly, and sometimes in person, because we loved that momentum we got when we would go to conference, and then it would take another year. So we were like, you know what, let's just meet up once a month, and whoever can come can come. Who doesn't, because it's hard to try to schedule 30 people or 15 people. But yeah, we're still doing it. We're still supporting each other. And for that, I am forever grateful.
That's amazing. I want to backtrack because when you say you escaped East Germany, what exactly do you mean? And I don't mean to be ignorant, but I honestly tell me more about that.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's not being ignorant. You just don't know. You didn't experience it. Living in East Germany basically was like living in a world of black and white, living in a prison in a way, because socialism, and it's funny, people always talk about socialism, communism, it's amazing. No, it's not. It's amazing on paper. It sounds great, right? Everybody's equal, everybody is the same, but that's not how we work. We're all individuals. We all want to express ourselves and not be in a uniform and look the same and sound the same and think the same. And that's what it was. You know, if you would speak out against the government, you would go to prison, you would be interrogated, investigated. It was called the SS. They were spies. Basically, that was like the Nazi time. What I'm talking about. The Stasi was like at our time, but it was pretty much like the Hitler times, you know, where it was all about the rules, the regulations, and whoever did not want to be part of it. There were two ways to get out. Well, three ways. You just try to get out, which many people tried, and they got killed. I mean, imagine that, right? Germans being killed by Germans for wanting, all they wanted is their freedom. They just wanted to get out. So they would try to get over the Berlin Wall, or like there were all these border, you know, fences and so much security. But they would shoot people, you know, and people would try with an air balloon. If you ever get a chance to go to Berlin, the Checkpoint Charlie Museum is really an important remembrance of all of that, because you can see like how many different ways people tried to escape. Some made it, very few, and a lot of them got killed. And then imagine living in West Berlin, looking over the wall and not being able to go. Well, they could come over, but we couldn't go over, right? So like family got separated, so you were not allowed to speak your mind, and if you were kind of flagged, right? So you had, then the other opportunity was to apply to leave the country. But what would happen immediately is you'd lose your job, you'd lose most of your friends, because nobody wanted to be associated with you, because now you are a betrayer, mm-hmm. right? You were considered like betraying your country and being a bad person. And I have not experienced that myself, but I've met people when I escaped, and I met all these other East German people who were in the same boat as me, who would share with me that they would once or twice a week, they would get interrogated. They had to go to a facilitation and be questioned. They would tell you, you know, what your husband does when you're not around, blah, blah, blah. They would try to just play you against one another, and even let you eventually go, but your husband has to stay behind. And they would do that until one day they decide you can go, and that could be 24 hours from now. They say, hey, Christine, you got 24 hours to get out of here.
Wow.
And yeah, really, really painful. And then so the third way was the opportunity that we saw. We went to Hungary, and people, I mean, it became tense, right? Because people finally woke up, kind of like right now, but people wake up about the government and like how we're just, you know, something in, right? And even as a very young kid, I started questioning things. I was actually really much into politics. I wanted to be a politician. I was like, oh my God, like I love politics. I just want, you know, change the world. And I would ask questions. I was actually really active. And then when I would ask questions, like, why can't I travel to Italy or Paris or whatever? Well, because we want to keep you safe. I'm like, safe from what? I don't understand. Like, safe from what? They're our enemies? How they are? So they did not like that. And they also didn't have the answers. They would just say, well, stay in your lane. Just shut up. And, you know. So I was like, no. And so I knew from an early age on that I wanted to see the world. I wanted to get out of my little town. I also grew up in a household that was very dysfunctional. My parents didn't have a great relationship. There was a lot of alcohol involved, a lot of fighting, a lot of, you know, abuse, verbal, physical. So I always dreamt of like, I just want to go, get out of here. And it makes sense now, because I think I never felt home in my own home. Maybe that's why I've been just this gypsy trying to just, you know, okay, what's next? But I also love it. And so when we saw the opportunity, we went to Hungary on a little vacation, and people started escaping, and we knew about that. So we had an address that was given to us by a friend of a friend, and we drove up to that address. We tried to get to that address, which is really close to the border to Austria. Mm-hmm. And the soldiers came with their big freaking tank and were like, where you going? They got the guns out. They're like, you can't be here. This is, you know, this. We're like, well, but no, we're visiting friends. And they didn't buy it. I guess there were like other people doing the same thing. So we had to go back. And then I went back to East Germany, and I watched on TV. We were not even allowed to watch West German TV, but my dad always did. And so I saw like people just escaping, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck here now. I'm never going to get out of here, because I didn't think at the time that the wall would ever come down. But then my then boyfriend, his dad was like, you guys are young. Tomorrow night, you're going to pack your stuff. I'm going to drive you to Berlin. You're going to take a train to Prague. And you jump over the fence into the embassy. Everybody's going to the embassy. And I'm like, sign me up. Yes. Told my parents. My parents freaked out because we didn't know if we were ever going to see each other again, if I'm going to get killed, if I'm going to get arrested. We didn't know.
God.
But honestly, I was just like, I got to take my shot. Like, this is my chance to do it. And so we did. And taking the train to Prague was, everybody was sitting there just looking like, we didn't know who's an agent, who's like trying to get information out of you, who's watching you. Then they came through and took everything I had in my luggage. They took everything out, looking at everything. And then we got to Prague, and again, everybody's just kind of standing around. We're like, oh my God, like, don't talk to nobody, don't tell nobody what, We got a cab and just told the cab, just take us to the West German embassy, West German, not East German. And then he dropped us off at this park. And it's funny, I went back to Prague a year and a half ago, and without even realizing it when we booked the trip, that, oh my God, Prague. That's why I escaped. I got to go back because I kept remembering this big dark park we had to go through to go to the fence and jump over. And I was questioning myself, maybe that's just like not how it actually was. Maybe I remembered that wrong. But no, when I went back, it was the park. It was so the cab dropped us off, and he pointed, go through the park, and I'm like, this is a fucking setup. I know this cannot be it. And all these people were walking around, like guys in suits, and we're just like, okay, just keep going. I'm like, oh God, we might get shot. I don't know, just keep going. It was really spooky and weird. But then we got there and people were like, come here, over here. And they just helped us get over the fence. I cried my eyes out because I'm like, wow, we made it. And then inside, I mean, people just kept coming in waves. And we're talking about people, little kids. They left everything behind. They left their house, their family, their belongings. So the situation became so severe that people had to wait like 3 hours to go to the bathroom. It was dirty. People were fighting over bananas, Coca-Cola, because we didn't have that in East Germany, not a big supply. And so the government from East Germany had to compromise and say, because the West Germans were like, this is unacceptable. You have to let your people go. You have to give us permission to let them go. And then the Chancellor, Gensler, he came and, after 5 nights in the embassy, sleeping in a tent that allowed like 24, we were 50 people in there. I was like on a little tiny bed that was like ripped, and I had like a kidney infection when I got to the other side.
Oh my God.
But he came and did the speech and was like, you are free to go. Do not panic. Everybody stay calm. Everybody is going to get on the train. And then while we were driving, while the train was taking us to West Germany, people were waving on some of the stations and some people tried to jump on. It was really crazy. That's how it was. So you couldn't just leave. We couldn't just leave our country. That was the only other way. And then a month later, the wall came down. People were like just going to and just said, fuck it. Like, and the revolution began. And I was part of that revolution, where the starting point of because when we escaped, our whole country was closed off. Like nobody could get in or out. So they were like, okay, they were panicking. They were like, oh my God, what do we do? Nobody can leave. Then when people just started to rebel, they started just freaking going and being
What year was this?
That was in 89.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. And then a few months after, my parents were able to visit me. I was not allowed to go back yet. And then I could also go back. And my friends were like, yeah, you could have just waited. I'm like, no way. I'm so glad I did what I did.
Yeah, because you honestly didn't know.
Yeah. Well, also, I didn't want to wait. I wanted to. I'm like, because of people like me, the wall came down. So, people like you were just waiting here. And so it was just a very suppressed system. And from then on, I just knew, I'm like, okay, now my world is an oyster. And then I met my friend in Hanover who loved America and New York. And that's when it all began. And honestly, I've always dreamed about New York and seeing it, in movies.
Yeah.
And it did not disappoint.
Oh my gosh, that's good to hear.
I had imagined it to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I went to Vegas and I thought Vegas was going to be amazing. And I thought it was quite disappointing. So I'm glad that New York lived up to your expectations.
Yes. Oh
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Oh
It's
yeah.
funny to me because I don't live that far from New York and I don't go there that often. So it's kind of
Mm.
interesting, like from an outside perspective. But when you are coming from the conditions that you were coming from, like I can totally understand that. I cannot believe that, to be honest, like that you went through all of that. That is just like, first of all, that is just so wild. And two, how crazy that you went through that, because I feel like that was probably such a pivotal point in your life. It's like such a defining moment. And then again, yes, it just sets you right up into that rebellious nature that you have. And it's not even like rebellious in a bad way. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's someone who's not going to be confined or controlled or tamed because I have a little bit of that in me too. Like I don't want to be told what to do or where
Same.
I can go and how I can live my life. Like I would probably lose my mind, just like it sounds like you were like on the verge of because no one deserves to live like that. That's wild to me.
It's crazy too because people, and I see it now too, people get so conditioned by what they hear on the news, and they're fine with it. They're totally, I mean, there's still people today that say, well, I miss back when we had it so much better. Everything was affordable. And I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you mean? But a lot of people don't want to think for themselves. They want to be told what to do, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is I think a lot of, because I was in my mind, I'm thinking, what's going on in today's world with the World Economic Forum. I don't want to get too deep into politics, but
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be aware of this stuff. But I would think that people like me would be so much more aware and awake, not woke, but awake about
Mhm.
what's really going on, because we've been through that. We've been through the propaganda, the brainwashing and all that kind of stuff, where think for yourself, like everybody has an opinion, but what's yours? What do you actually believe or think? And I think that's also my life's mission, where I'm just like trying to encourage people, think for yourself and be yourself. And if somebody wants to cancel you or judge you for how you voted for, what you believe in, then let them fall away, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be someone I'm not and think the way they want me to think or do the things, the whole COVID, we all know what happened, and what a scam that was. And I never got vaccinated. I never got a swab. I never got any of that. I don't judge anyone who did, but I'm just saying for me, it didn't feel right. And I was so upset when my mom did it, even though she said she didn't. And then she admitted it. And her partner, I still believe, passed away because of that, because he was already in a bad condition before, So
Right.
it just be aware.
Don't just go blindly with what, society or they tell you to do or they tell you what's good for your body.
Yeah.
You have to think for yourself. And I understand what you're saying. Like some people don't want to think for themselves. They want to just glide by and not have like, I guess, the pressure of having to think for themselves because for whatever reason, I don't understand. Like I hope to think that I am someone who thinks for myself, asks questions, and that's, yeah, that gets me in trouble sometimes. But you know what I mean? Like, I would rather
Yeah.
know. Like, this is, you know what I mean? Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, right? So if we have the, this is my one life to live, I want to live it by my rules. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just fall suit because someone thinks I should. Who is that person, or who are
Yeah.
they to tell me how to live my life? And it's kind of crazy because there are so many people out there that are just like the fish that are going along with the flow. And then there's like people like us that are like, we're going to go upstream against not that we're against
Yes.
everybody, but like we're leading a different group of people that are ready to like be more, do more, share their message and not just hide under a rock and just let everything fall apart. So I want to
Absolutely.
commend you though. Like that's also really, I feel like from an outside perspective, the timing really worked out in regards to you wanting to go visit and then you ending up having to stay there because of COVID. It really seems like divine timing. Like you had a feeling that you wanted to go,
Totally.
something led
Totally.
you there, and it was like the perfect time for you to be there because you're able to care for your mom in such a way. That's really kind of impactful. Have you had that same kind of like thought about that situation that you experienced?
Oh yeah. I mean, also my dog, having him with me and him being a huge part of her healing for me personally, but also for her to trust me, because it was not always easy. Because when someone, and sometimes I couldn't even in the hospital, they were sometimes rude to her, and she would get upset because she couldn't talk, and she loved to talk. And so suddenly you don't realize all the things we take for granted, our voice, being able to drink on our own, eat on our own. You have to rely on people to do that for you. And so I had so much appreciation for my health and also awareness of how important it is to be healthy and how important family is, because my mom's partner at the time, he couldn't handle it. He was just not capable. I'm like, come on, I'll show you. He's like, I can't do it. I'm like, you know what? All good. I'll do it. I got it. And
Right.
I would go to the hospital with her like every day, like for 5 days a week to do her radiation and stuff. And, my mom is a tough ass. I was like, what she went through, I have so much. I mean, I've always had respect for my mom and I love my mom, but I have so much more respect for my mom, what she gone through. And I sometimes I remind her of that because she's very scared in so many ways about little things like the dark. She doesn't like to be out when it's dark. I'm like, Mom, you know what you've gone through?
Right.
You know what I mean? Walking outside in the dark, it's not a
Right.
big deal.
Right.
You had your jaw cut open, you know what I mean? You couldn't talk, like you had a freaking track in your throat. That scared me
That's
so much
scary.
oh my God, it scared me so much. For the first week or two, I was just constantly like, she would cough, and I'm like, oh my God, do I have to call 911? Because I didn't know.
Of course.
And then, eventually you get educated, and the nurse would come twice a week. But just being able, I felt also so grateful. And it's funny because she would sometimes give me shit about why can't I just have a normal job? And I said to her, if I had a normal job right now, I would not be able to even do this. I would have had to. I mean, COVID happened, so it probably didn't
Yeah.
matter at that time. But still, I was like, I'm able to be here with you, for you, and I was really grateful for all of it, because everything just seemed. I think, I believe this whole pandemic, as I call it, backfired because maybe they wanted everyone to just comply and stay inside and be small, right, and just be a little puppy and just do whatever they want you to do. But people were like, you know what? Why am I driving 3 hours a day to get to my job when I could just do a Zoom meeting? These meetings are unimportant. I can get the work done at my own desk at home and still clean my house, take care of my family, whatever, and enjoy life. So I think it opened a whole new world
Oh yeah.
for a majority of people that
Oh
were
yeah.
just, what else do I want to do? It's like 9/11. When 9/11 happened and people were like, fuck this, I'm gonna quit my job. I don't want to be in a freaking high skyscraper anymore. I just want to go travel or whatever. And they changed their life, because sometimes a tragedy not only brings people together, but it wakes people up,
Yeah.
where they realize how fragile we are,
Yeah.
you know,
100%.
how precious life is.
100%. Were you in the city for 9/11?
Yeah. I was in Jersey City, and my friend actually woke me up from Germany. She's like, you know what's going on? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm still in bed. She's like, the towers got hit.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
what? And I would go to my park in Jersey City where I could
Yeah.
see the towers, and I would always look at the towers, admire them, and be like,
Mm-hmm.
just such a cool freaking view. And seeing that, I remember going to the gym, being on my treadmill, and just going, this is not happening. This is not happening. When I get off the treadmill, when I go back home, and I'm gonna look that way, there was just like, not real. And
Mm-hmm.
then I couldn't get a hold of anyone. That was kind of scary. We were trying to volunteer, but there was no one, nothing to,
Yeah. Yeah, it was a mess.
you know,
It was a mess.
yeah.
I always
Hmm.
remember that day because I was working at a party store and I was listening to Z100 and they were saying like, "Oh my God, like the tower just got hit." And like I thought that it was a joke. Like I thought that they were just like pranking the
Right.
listeners. And then when the second one hit and I could hear like the scaredness in their voices, I was like, "Oh shit, like this is really happening." And it was really scary. And I agree with what you said because like it was tragic, but it's not a but, it's an and. People really did come together. And for, I don't know, like a good solid few months, it felt like we lived in a really different world. And that was cool because people really cared about each other. And because it was that reminder of how fragile life is and how you don't even think sometimes. And I think that's part of the beauty also of what you do. And I love that you are not limiting yourself to a 9 to 5 because so many people are just I don't know, like not wasting their lives, but like they're not doing what makes them feel good. They're not doing what
Yeah.
lights them up. They're doing what pays the bills. And it's like, we're not here to just work for a paycheck and die. Like we are here to experience so much more. So I love having conversations with the people that are brave enough to do so. And listen, like there are some people out there that love a
Yeah.
routine. They love eating the same thing every day. They love pooping at the same time of day. Like, I'll
I
just
wish
put
I
it out
could.
there. Like, I am like, I like things to be mixed up. I don't
Same.
like to be, it's boring to me to
Yes,
have the
yes.
same routine every single day, you know? So everyone has their own thing, but I think there's more and more people that are waking up to wanting more than the quote unquote American dream. And I also like it just makes me think too. There are so many people that wanted, women wanted to not be the housewife. And now there's people that are like scrambling, like, put me back. I'll make the dinner instead of like working, because the responsibilities didn't go away. Like you're still having to care for children and elderly parents and whatnot. It's just now you have to work too on top of that. I don't know, but you have to experience the opposite to know what you want. Sometimes when people aren't clear with what they want, just jot down what you don't want, and then that'll make it a little clearer for you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when you were saying like, how people came together. I really loved going, like the minute the city was open, I would just go in and walk downtown and it was still like you could smell it, but everyone, we would just like look at each other and give each other a smile and light a candle and look at
Yeah.
all the pictures of the missing people. And I think that it really hit me where I was just, we are all in this together. And the more we can come together and support one another and really follow our passion, our dreams, and the life we live, when I decided a long, long time ago, since I've been in America, I never really had a 9 to 5, other than I had my teaching job. But even that was really flexible, my voice lessons, because I work
Mhm.
for talent school and then I teach it. I was teaching at home. But I think that everybody, my mom loves her town. She's lived there her entire life. I'm like, this is so not me. But if she's happy, good. If you have a job and you have a 9 to 5, sometimes I envy people that have a solid job that gives them a solid check, even if, because that's a
I get it.
great
It's a
feeling.
security. Yeah,
It's a security.
100%.
So sometimes I scramble, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm like, oh shit, how am I gonna make my living here?
Hmm.
Um, but that's when you have to trust the process and you have to trust that things will always work out. I mean, I look back at the lowest of the lows, it's always worked out,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, but taking the initiative and people like us, I feel the community we are in, I always feel, man, as people that don't know what they want to do at all, they don't know what their passions are, they have no ambitions. For me, it's always like, man, I like watching something, learning something new, like every day. I want to like feed me something, learning about AI right now.
Yeah.
And then of course applying it, like in the past I've learned a lot, but I didn't always apply it necessarily. But when you apply what you're learning, this is just such a valuable thing, and then you eventually will find something that really lights you up and excites you, not just for this week but for the next year or 2 years, where you're like, this is my lane, this is what I want to do.
Mm.
And I feel like taking this course that we've been in with Kathy, it's a blessing and a curse, where I feel I have so many passions. I want to do so many things, but at the big picture, like now that I'm zooming out more and more and get clearer, I'm like, my mission is to just uplift people and empower people and to make them risk a little bit more. Because you can always, like you said earlier, we've been taught that, you have to stay in one place. I mean, when you live in an apartment, a lot of times you have to sign a lease for a year, which is,
Yeah.
a year is also not that long. But you could also Airbnb, you could go, because my thing was, I was like, I don't really know where I want to live. And then I realized I don't have to settle in any town I can just go travel and see where it really resonates with me, where I have all the things I really want, where I have a little bit of city life, where I have a little bit of nature and serenity, like where I can relax and chill and have my peace, but then also have some action if I want to. And I still haven't found it yet exactly. And that's okay because I'm just exploring and learning. And right now, honestly, we're in Alabama and I'm like, this sucks. It's not what I thought. But how would I know that if I
Yeah.
wasn't here? And maybe tomorrow I'll be like, oh my God, I just found the thing that is so cool. Like I changed my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to be open to the possibilities and to the opportunities, and also be okay if I failed. If I said, that was the wrong move. So what? Now what?
Right.
It's okay.
I love
You
that.
know,
Because that's also giving yourself grace. That's giving yourself
grow.
grace.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because I feel like you're nailing it on the head. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know until you try. And it's okay. Nothing in this world is per se a mistake. It's a learning lesson, something that you can reflect on and take the knowledge that you have now and apply it to your next choice.
Exactly. And if really it would come down to where you feel, oh my God, like I'm so broke and I don't know, I'm so lost, get a little job for a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always,
Quite doable. I
yeah,
think what you're saying, and I believe it too, is like having that inner trust, that inner belief, that core belief that it will always work out. And you
yeah,
might get to a point where it feels really, really hard, but that hope, right? Hope is always the guidepost. It's always what's going to move you to keep going.
And I would even say not even hope. I would say expect something great to happen because I feel hope still has that little doubt in it, right? I'm hoping it's going to
Mhm.
work out, but when I'm expecting things to just work out, I'm going to trust that it's just going to work out.
Yeah, trust. Trust is the better word for sure.
I think so. Trust is the way to go because when you're trusting, you are being the vessel. You're just allowing it to flow through you. I feel that I'm getting better at it, but I'm still going back to my old self where I go freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I got to make money. It's such a bad state to be in. And so the minute I realize that, I'm like, all right, this is getting me nowhere. I need to just get out of this, what I'm capable of, and trust.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't always, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes half an hour, sometimes it takes a day,
Yeah.
But the awareness of doing that, because we're all a work in progress and we always sometimes fall back to our default where because I've been taught, money doesn't grow on trees. And my mom's always like, well, how are you going to make a living? Now she stopped asking me, but that was a big trigger for me, always her asking. Like, I'm like, oh, we just played the show instead of like, how'd it go? How
Yeah.
much money did you make? And I'm like, oh my God, can you
But
just
yeah,
not ask me about that? And then she saw me live and I think she understands.
that's awesome.
Jacqueline
Yeah.
had me
You know
on
what's
stage. I was singing.
Yeah, she got to see what it was like for
I'm
you
back.
to be in person
Yeah.
and what lit you up. Because I've seen pictures of you on stage and
Yes.
whatnot, and I could see that that is like your jam that really, really sparks your soul on fire, and that's really cool to see.
Yeah. And we got to surround yourself with people who support that. Because when you are surrounded by people like my mom was, and it's not her fault, it's just her upbringing and her mindset. But if you're surrounded by people like that, then that's really hard for you to follow your dream, and to be the gypsy. And honestly, I've been the biggest block in my past because all my friends always are like, you're badass, you can do whatever. So I've been actually really lucky about that. I'm like, my friends believe more in me than I do. I'm very grateful for that.
I can relate to that. Yeah. You know what? I think that we're such good people that we can see the potential in other people. So then we hold that space for them, you
Yeah.
know? Oh, this was such a great conversation. I cannot believe all that you have overcome in your life. So that honestly shook me. I wanted to cry. That's such a moving story. And like, it's not a story though, it's like your life. And that's just so wild that you went through that. I can't even imagine. If you were to leave our listeners with any last thoughts, what would you want to tell the audience?
Follow your bliss. If there's something that keeps nagging at you and you just keep coming up with excuses, because we always say, oh, when I have the money, when I have this, when I have that. No, take the first step today. What can I do today to get a little bit closer to what I want to do? Whether that's getting on a cruise, on a boat, or, traveling the world, or moving, or starting a new business, whatever that may be, or like trying to get into a relationship, whatever it may be, just do the first step and do it where it feels aligned, not forcing anything. But allow yourself to just step a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. Nothing changes without discomfort. It's just a sad reality. But on the other end of that bravery is a whole new world, and you're holding yourself back by not permitting yourself the permission to take that first aligned step. I love that. And I think you have been a prime example of that. And so I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story today. It really is such an incredible tale. And I love the fact that you're traveling around the United States and seeing wherever your heart is pulling you to land and experience. Like, that sounds so amazing, and I love it.
I was going to say one more thing, because when you said that, it reminded me of a quote. I forget who said it, but nothing happens till something moves. Mm-hmm. And that is so important, because when you create that momentum, the universe rearranges things for you. It's just like making that first step, showing the universe that I am ready.
Yes.
People can find me at pinkstarmusic.com. That's probably the best place. I'm all over social media. I'm Pinkstar Music, I think, on TikTok, Jacqueline van Bierk on Instagram. I should have all the same name, but I have so many different names. But Pinkstar Music is my hub where everything is kind of happening.
I love that. And I'll definitely drop the links in the show notes for anyone that wants to join you on your journey. This has been such a beautiful call today. And I want to thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your love that you're exuding.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. If you've been feeling the pull for deeper transformation, real, lasting change that starts from within, I'd love to invite you into transformational one-on-one coaching with me. This is where alignment becomes your new normal. You'll get 4 90-minute sessions at an introductory offer of $600, designed to help you release what's holding you back, reconnect with your truth, and step into the next version of yourself, fully and unapologetically. You can book your sessions through the link in my bio. Just tap my link tree to get started. Your next breakthrough is closer than you think, and I'd love to be a part of your journey.